Hey everyone, it's me again, Paul Muller, the host of the AI Forecast, a weekly podcast sponsored by the amazing folks at Cloudera. And as usual, we're exploring the past, the present, and the future of data and AI in the enterprise, along with leading companies and industry experts who we're going to hear from very shortly. Well, the emergence of AI has actively changed and is changing the business landscape. Whether you're an individual contributor or a manager or a business leader, everyone across the globe is racing to understand, let alone to implement the technology for fear largely of falling behind. And I'll speak for myself. It's simultaneously thrilling and it's also a little terrifying in terms of what it might do to my livelihood, my sense of self-worth, should I wake up and find that I've been replaced by a computer. And I get the feeling I'm not alone. Well, to talk about this and to talk about her book, The Human Side of Digital Transformation, as well as her upcoming book, AI for Business, due to be published in April of this year, I'm joined by Kamales Lardi. She's ranked as one of the top 10 global influencers, I should say, in digital transformation. And as you might imagine, she's widely sought after as a speaker at conferences across the globe. She's also founder and CEO of Lardi and Partners Consulting, a firm specialising in guiding digital transformation initiatives from strategy right through to execution. Please welcome to the podcast, Kamales Lardi. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to join you here today.
It's great to catch up with you again. It's been a couple of years since you and I caught up. In fact, shortly, I think, after the publication of your first book.
Absolutely.
So keen to find out what's been happening. And I'm keen to learn about the new one because mysteriously you are not yet published. So I'm normally good at reading the books of the authors that come on the podcast, but you've managed to checkmate me here without publishing it. I can't read it, so I've got lots of questions for you. But before we do that, we do something at the beginning of every episode. We ask our fast 4 questions just to kind of warm up. Are you ready to do this?
Absolutely. Hit me with it.
Let's do it, she says. All right, first question. Kamales, what would people who know you best say is your superpower?
Well, let me go from a business perspective. So I don't want to say what my friends say about me. From a business perspective, I would say probably humanizing complex technologies or technology capabilities. I'm fairly good at translating complex tech into things that are actionable, that are, emotionally engaging, that help organizations and business leaders understand how technologies are going to disrupt them and how it could be applied so they can survive and thrive in the digital economy. And so that's something I believe that's quite unique about what I bring to the table for many of these organizations, in the sense that I connect the elements of technology, the human factor, and the strategic parts of business capabilities for tech for business application, really.
All right. Well, let's have a bit of fun with that. Looking back over the last several 100,000 years of humanity, what would you say the most impactful technology of all time is?
Many people in my network will probably say AI. I'm going to go with the printing press.
I love that. See, I feel the same way. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that started the ball rolling, right? I feel, and as well coming from the human side of things, I feel the printing press was the element that really democratized knowledge. It made it more accessible globally. And that kind of triggered the building of knowledge and capabilities, the aspects around innovation. And that was, for me, the start of innovation, the element that really created, transformation around education and literacy across the globe, and it's shaped humanity. So without that piece, I think we wouldn't have come this far with technology as we are today.
What's one thing you'd love to see AI automate in your future for you personally?
I don't know about automating. I think most industries are seeing the impact of AI, the convergence of technology, other technologies with AI. So there's so much transformation, particularly for me, what I see on the ground with companies. Application of AI across industries is exploding at the moment. I would like to see, what I would really like to see is kind of a future element or near future element is AI application in the education environment. Bringing it to the schools, helping younger kids understand not only how to apply AI and how to work with it effectively and build skills from a younger age, but also what the dangers could be and how to better manage and how to create oversight for themselves. And I think this is going to be an increasingly impactful problem that we're going to see in the near future. And the only way to counteract that is to get people educated, get children educated, and help them understand the positives and negatives. And this is something we didn't actually do very well for platforms like social media, as a general society. And I feel that it's very necessary for AI.
I'm just curious, what are some of the best practices you've learned when it comes to working with data? Things that just help you be successful with it, using it?
Data is like the fuel for the engine, right? And I really feel that no matter what technology you're using today, no matter, what, even if you're using from social media all the way to AI, data is the element that's going to make or break what you're doing. And if you're putting in dirty fuel, the engine's not going to work, right? So this is how I feel about it. And it's surprising even today, the number of organizations that I work with who don't have their data strategy in order. So I think it's not so much about the volume. It's clear we have volumes and volumes, big data is there, but companies don't know how to make use of that data in a effective way, really coming from the perspective of what is the business value that comes out of this data? What am I going to be using it for? What's the purpose and what's the business value and insight I'm looking for? Is it clean? Is it high quality? Is there data integrity built into my database and my data strategy that I'm developing? Where's the source coming from? All of these basic elements, which there are still many companies out there struggling with. And of course, ethics and bias. As long as we as humanity are producing data, our biases are in that data and information, and these are being hard-coded into systems. And so we have to be very cognizant, very aware of how the data is being used and where these biases exist. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good or bad thing, right? As human beings, we are a gray area. There's good and bad in everyone, and we have to expect that from the data that we produce. But the awareness of this is very important, and how do we manage that in an objective way is very important.
You used a phrase at the beginning of this when we were talking about your hacks that have helped you with data. And you talked about the data pipeline, garbage in, garbage out, so cleansing your data, so on and so forth. And you used a phrase there, which is getting the basics right, which so many companies don't do. And as you said that, I thought to myself, if so many people are getting it wrong, are they really basics? Or is that the advanced kung fu of getting a lot of this right, is that the things that seem so simple or trivial that people dismiss them as being unimportant, the basics aren't actually basic. And I tie that to this neuroscience comment you make, because I do wonder if some of the problems are because people are almost dismissive of the importance of some of these things because they're seen to be so simple or so obvious. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there are a couple of elements to it, and I think this is a really good question, so thank you for raising it. There are a couple of elements. It is basic things that you might expect companies to already address, but maybe they're addressing it in the wrong way. And I like to explain this by saying, whenever we go into an organization and we talk about digital transformation, companies tend to think about, okay, you're doing, let's do change management. And I say to them, no, change management is not it. If you call it change management, it's going to fall short of what we need, because you tend to think about change management as after the process, right? You come up with the strategy, you come up with the roadmap, you build the solution, and then you do change management at the end to get people to change and use. So that involves communication and training. Whereas what we're looking at, the human factor, really starts from the very beginning. At that point where you decide something needs to change in the organization, that's when you need to get key people involved. You get your organization involved, you get the buy-in, and you move the entire organization in the same direction. And this is where many companies fall short, because they underestimate this process, right? They tend to think if the management tells you use this technology, you got to use this technology, full stop. And that's not really how people work. Some people may do it that way, but others may not. So this is one element of it. The other element is around, I mentioned this as well earlier, it's the entire evolution of the business. It's not just implement the technology, do the training, and use the tech. There's also processes built around that need to be changed, processes that need to be transformed, workflows, KPIs. Many leadership teams, for example, are measured on quarterly measures, right? So if you're implementing a tangible technology, within the first quarter, they get their bonus for that specific quarter, or they get the bonus for that year. They're not measured on that continuous evolution. And I think all of these different elements coming together, organizations are built around these traditional assumptions of how business should run. And what we're really quickly finding out, because of new technologies, because of disruptions, because of the new competitive landscape, these traditional assumptions are no longer valid. We need to have a new way of thinking about how we run organizations.
So we talk about change management. I was recently listening to a podcast where someone was complaining about the fact that Apple's changed the iPhotos app. Now, obviously not an enterprise example here, but the point he was trying to make was there was nothing wrong with it. But some product manager somewhere is incentivized on change and improvement and was introducing these things. And he said, now I've got to relearn a whole new way of working that's doing nothing for my productivity. It's become inconvenient, and I'm kind of angry about this thing changing for no good reason. And that's just one example of something in someone's life. When you take an enterprise and you've got hundreds of applications and touch points across an organization, do you think we're sympathetic enough to the fact that all of this change is just fatiguing when your job might be to just check in someone on an airline, or help them resolve a problem with them with their bank balance or accessing the government, and we keep moving all of these pieces around on these workers who are just trying to get their job done and wondering why all this change is happening in the first place?
I think that's a great point. Change fatigue is definitely something that we're seeing a lot at the moment across the board, not just within organizations, but even in society. Even the whole entire geopolitical environment is facing this sort of rapid change and disruption. And I believe, this is one of the reasons I got into cognitive neuroscience as well, just to start deep diving a little bit more into the impact of these types of technologies on people. And it was revealing for me to kind of read one study that indicated transformation or change that happens within an organization, the level of change can be equated to physical pain for a person. The amount of change that organizations go through and the level of uncertainty that people have to face, right?
That resonates.
You feel that physical pain. And so it has that similar effect on the brain. It has that similar effect on your body and your physiological response. And so I think the major issue, or in my view, the major issue is, as you said, organizations wanting to change for the sake of change, or organizations feeling that they need to change in order to survive, but not focusing on the right elements. And this is why I like to use the word evolutionary change, or evolutionary transformation, because you need to first of all focus on the why. What's the purpose of the organization? And you probably will be surprised. Most leadership teams, when I pose this question to them, why do you exist as a company? The response is typically around financial elements, commercial elements, to make money, for business growth, for financial returns. In my view, maybe it's a little philosophical, but organizations are in existence to deliver something to the market, to deliver something to consumers. Otherwise, you don't need to exist. You're there to add value and create value for your consumers. And so a healthy, happy result of that is the commercial financial outcome. Otherwise, you probably are not delivering the right thing. But I think this is where you have to first ask the question, why do you exist as an organization? Have a very clear, strong purpose. And this is part of that digital transformation process. And once your purpose is clear, you can then look at the organization structure, at the processes, and what you do as a company, what you deliver, and look at where efficiency comes in. Where can we do what we do better? Where can we do where we are doing things we don't need to do, as well as where can we do new things that the market needs? And this is the process of digital transformation, asking these difficult questions. So we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we look at how clean your bathwater is. Can we improve on that? And we also look at the baby. Do we need a different baby? Sorry, my analogy is going in all directions.
Well, I do think there's been, particularly with the DevOps movement and the agile software development movement, there's been almost this cult of delivery that's built up. This cult of how many features are we shipping? How many code changes can we introduce into the environment in a day? And don't get me wrong, it's really important when you compare it to the old model of an 18, 24-month release cycle and how slow and risk-prone and cost-inefficient the old way of delivering software was. But it seems like we've almost fetishized change delivery for change's sake. It's like people's dashboards and their reward systems from a software development side, on the IT side, are driven by metrics which are from the consumer or user side almost perverse. It's almost like they've lost sight of the reason they're doing this in the first place. And again, I don't say that. I should be careful for people who are listening who are in the process of delivering stuff. I know there are a bunch of you, the majority out there are really very close to the business, but I do feel as though the thing that gets celebrated and rewarded is the shipping of features, not necessarily the outcome it has for the business. What are your thoughts?
I believe there is a place for it, definitely, and it's adding a lot of value when it's applied correctly, these kinds of methodologies. But there needs to be then not just a close interaction with the business, but also a deep understanding of what you're delivering towards the business or why you're delivering towards the business. And I think this is where there is a disconnect. There is so much efficiency, and I've had experiences where I've spoken to people within those development circles or whatever structure you may call it. I've had craft circles, I've had teams, I've had all kinds of different names that we've worked with, where the individual in that structure didn't fully understand what they were delivering towards, the bigger picture. And so they were doing what they were doing really, really well, but there was no kind of cognitive element around, does this add value? Do I need to do it this way? Or am I doing it the right way? How does it fit into the bigger structure of what the business is delivering to the end customer? And I think this is where that kind of that connectivity, and it isn't that person's fault in any way. I think the structure kind of creates those siloed thinkings. And so having this holistic view of purpose, why do we exist as a business? What is our purpose for the customer? What do we deliver towards the customer? I've worked, for example, with marketing teams that don't even use customer personas. They don't use customer journeys. They don't have this view of the market and what the market needs. They just produce elements for campaigns and push them out and promote campaigns. And so for me, these are areas where a new way of thinking is necessary, and that's where, for me, digital transformation comes in as well. We shift the mindset towards thinking about value and purpose for business.
What would you do differently now if you were to publish edition 2 of the book, for example? How would you change it?
I wouldn't change so much. I think that the longevity of the book was one of the things, or the sustainability of the content was one of the things I wanted to achieve. It had to be something that could be still relevant as technology. And this is one of the principles that I explain early on in the book. Technology is a cycle. There's trends, the hype cycle comes and goes, but the business sustainable transformation strategy, it has to continue, and it has to still be relevant even if the technology change comes in. I feel the one key element I would add to the book is around skill sets and capabilities and how to upskill within the organization. The upskilling needs to happen very rapidly across the board for organizations today. I'm finding, as I touch base with companies on the ground across industries, the level of understanding for how AI impacts their business, the level of understanding for where to apply it and how best to use it, still very much lacking. And it goes very much across the entire organization structure, from top leadership and board members all the way down to individuals within teams and employee structures. And so typically you don't find enough, you only find that knowledge within the teams that are creating use cases and applying the AI. And so that's insufficient, looking at the rapid development that's happening in the market today. And it's also such a waste, because what I use AI, I use platforms, I use Gen AI on a daily basis. And I'm not shy to say it's taken my work down as a consultant from doing 150% down to doing 30%, because the cognitive element, the kind of value that I bring, I can really concentrate on bringing that value and that interaction to the clients and that experience that I have for over 25 years. And all of the repetitive tasks, I can kind of automate a lot of that. And so it's bringing such a huge value for organizations. So I can't imagine why companies wouldn't be using it currently.
Yeah.
But you have to have an eye for how best to use it. And my advice really is to come from a perspective of business value, right? You find a lot of companies that are coming from the perspective of use case, right? We've got 10 use cases. How do we apply AI in these 10 use cases? And I'm like, go 10 steps back and start with, what's your business problem? What's your business challenge? Where do you need to make a shift in your business? And then find the AI that fits that, or the tech that fits that.
All right. Well, this is where I get to peek behind the curtain. You came on the show before I was able to read your book, which is AI for Business, which is due out in April, as I mentioned.
First of all, the books that I had experienced in the market tended to focus very much on the tech. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to shift the focus back into business talk. The second element is it had to be understandable and it had to make sense for business leaders. It had to be a playbook for business leaders, which is what I wanted to achieve. And the third element is to come from the human side, to talk about technology from the perspective of the human side. So for example, the first chapter focuses on the, translating what intelligence is. Everyone says artificial intelligence, but there's very little understanding what intelligence is and why it's artificial. So I break that down in a very easy, concise way to understand what we're talking about when we say artificial intelligence. What's that cognitive process and what are we trying to digitize with AI? I did a presentation for a luxury jewelry brand. I presented to the board members and we were talking about, organization transformation, impact of AI, so a range of different topics. And the board members became very, very caught up on the topic of, is AI going to replace us? Are we looking at super intelligence? Are they going to take over? And so I had to be very blunt with this leadership team and say, even if that happens, it won't be in your lifetime. So I don't think we need to worry about that at the moment. And your worry is more about, is AI going to change the way you do business and give smaller competitors a leg up and really transform the way customers are engaging with your product? Those are the questions you should be asking. You shouldn't worry too much about, is AI going to kill you as a human? You should worry about if it's going to kill your business. And so this is what I tried to project in the book as well, to have this basic understanding of where the impact is going to be seen, how can we use it well within our business, and what are some of the processes and steps that companies need to take in order to use it well within their business environment. I'm a technology optimist, right? So I believe in the goodness in humanity, and I believe that people, if we build technology, essentially it will be for the good. I'm more afraid of people using the technology in a negative way rather than the technology being negative towards us. So that's where I stand, honestly. I think, AGI or, general artificial intelligence might come to a point where it could be, probably not in our lifetime, maybe even sooner. I wouldn't want to venture a guess on that. I think, behind closed doors, there's many different developments going on. So there could be technology out there that's super intelligent. But I believe that technology essentially can transform mankind for the better if we use it in the right way. That's where I stand.
I tend to agree with you. I asked the question partly because I was having this debate, as I mentioned earlier on today, about where we were in terms of AI, and someone said, I made the comment that as AI its impact starts to be felt and deployed, and their response was, it's already here. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, have you interacted with any of this rubbish? I mean, the stuff that comes out of it is the signal to noise ratio is actually pretty low. I could ask a technology agent to, clean up some data for me, but I'd be spending more time with it than I would with a human trying to get the same result. With a couple of quick sentences, we'll go away for a couple of hours, come back and get a better result than having to coach this idiot savant through the process of getting what I wanted. So I tend to be a bit like you. I'm like, Siri can't even get basic dictation right. I'm really not that concerned about it taking over the planet at the moment. I'm more concerned about business people who think it's super capable and applying it in ways that are going to surprise them when suddenly their financial results crater because this supposedly super intelligent software is delivering highly erroneous results because it wasn't configured correctly, because they had too great an expectation of what it could do, and they fired all the people who were governing it and offering it oversight. So to your point, yeah, I think the raised expectations are probably our biggest risk, not the technology itself.
The raised expectation and the overly trusting the algorithm, overly trusting the output without understanding how that information is being, or how the output is being produced. And I think this is where I'm such an advocate for education and increasing literacy around how technology is being applied. I recently wrote an article for Forbes on the impact of AI on decision making. So I hope you pick that up and read it as well, because that I raised a couple of these concerns, right? So how is decision making done in the brain for human beings, and how AI can very effectively and very quickly shift those or influence those decision points. And these are some of the things that I feel leadership teams are not paying attention to. It could be impactful in terms of how you put out products to customers. It could be as impactful as how you utilize AI for decision making within your organization, but it also could be impactful around how you consume information on digital platforms and how that information could be manipulated to drive decision making in a certain way.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm going to interrupt you. I mean, confirmation bias, talking about cognitive neuroscience, is the other. I recently was having a discussion with one of the directors, the managing director of a company I'm on the board of, and we were going through strategy and planning. And thankfully, just my process talking about hacks with data is I tend to swim in data for a while and triangulate aggressively to calibrate my understanding of a business. And both of us had run during a bit of a planning exercise, a wargaming exercise, some numbers through an AI tool. And it threw out some numbers, and he immediately glommed onto that number and went, "Yep, that's it. See, that's the thing." And my little spidey senses were tingling, going, something's not right about this, because I've spent so much time swimming in this data. I'm like, something's off here. And I went back and interrogated it, and sure enough, there was some dodgy data that had gotten into the data set that had swung a number in a particular direction, but it was a direction that he wanted it to go in. He was expecting and hoping for that data set to swing in his favor, because it confirmed everything he wanted to see in the business. He's like, yep, and that's why we need to go with this strategy, because the data is telling us this. And I'm like, no, you didn't spend enough time with it yourself. You've let the AI, these automated tools, lead you to a precisely incorrect conclusion because you weren't intimate enough with the source data that came into it. And I think, going back to hopefully that closed the loop on this discussion we're having about things like board members going placing too much faith in this, and seeing it as a substitute for their engagement versus an amplifier of their capabilities. And I guess that's the difference, isn't it?
Absolutely. And we are also building echo chambers within which we are.
Absolutely.
Bias is just accelerating and augmenting our own beliefs. And I think it's getting dangerous, not just from a business perspective, but also societal perspective.
Without a doubt. One of the things, so let's talk a bit more about the book. The only thing that's published is the blurb. One of the things you talk about is inclusive design, which I thought was really refreshing. I guess I can see the connection to cognitive neuroscience, but talk to us a bit about inclusive design and how it relates to AI.
Inclusive design would include, not just having the right group of people involved in designing and developing technology. It also includes looking at neurodiversity, for example. We often talk about having, DEI is a big topic at the moment, so I won't dive into that. But we often talk about having the right team of people, right? So if you have technology that's being designed and developed by a diverse group of people, it will be a diverse group of people will be able to use it. And I think this is where we often forget people who are neurodivergent, people who are disabled, people who are... So there are a range of different kinds of groups of people that are using these technologies as well, and they are not being part of those design and development processes. And so this is where inclusive design really comes from the human perspective of looking at what technology solution are you building? Where does this technology fit in terms of society's use, in terms of business use? Who's the end target audience that's going to use the technology, and how can we ensure that those people get what they need out of these technologies? There's so little thought that's going into that at the moment across the board. Whether you're talking about AI or you're talking about blockchain or any other technology, what I've seen in the market is there's so little thought that's going into this element. It's always about what tech are we building, how do we get it out into the market, and how do we commercialize it as quickly as possible. And you will find this way of thinking across the board, whether it's large organizations or startups. It's a little bit frustrating because sometimes the flaws that are built into the tech are so obvious. If you come from a background that's more diverse, the first thing you see is this glaring issue with the technology that's being built. So being part of, for example, red teaming teams where we try to stress test technology on purpose to see if it actually is biased and if bias is built into the technology, coming from the perspective of, can we push this tech and the data that's being fed into it purposely down the wrong line and see what the output is, and trying to find flaws in the system. Those are really important parts of the process as well. As part of the book, or one element in the book, I really urge business leaders to look at a holistic view of tech development and design beyond just the tech output, but really looking at how it could be potentially used in society.
I mean, the recent overarching narrative at the moment, certainly coming out of the United States, is you get the vibe that DEI has become this dirty word, or at least it's become highly politicized as a negative thing, versus the concept of, a diverse group of opinions. Mm-hmm. Let's be clear, and opinions and backgrounds can mean a lot of different things, and I guess that's where it becomes political versus purposeful. But again, having a group of people who are working with you as you deploy this, like, for example, behavioral psychologists, like, technologists, security people, cybersecurity people and their backgrounds, because, again, you talk about red teaming. One of my nightmare scenarios is hackers feeding your chatbots with false information and building up a corpus of supposed knowledge inside a chatbot that they then use to fool your business into doing something it shouldn't. I mean, I don't think anyone's even really thinking about that right now, but get a good couple of cybersecurity people on your team, diversity-wise, like in terms of increasing the diversity quotient, and they're gonna be thinking like that. They're going to start to challenge people. So I am concerned that this sort of the sense that DEI has automatically become a negative thing might blind people to the importance of battle testing some of these concepts by having a more diverse set of people look at it.
You hit the nail on the head. I think oftentimes when people talk about diversity, they're not thinking about, they're thinking about gender diversity or racial diversity. But diversity is as well cognitive diversity. It is as well, range of skill sets and capabilities. It comes down to a range of cultures, a range of functions. Having, for example, people with expertise in cybersecurity within the team, that is considered DEI as well. And I think this kind of misrepresentation in the market is quite challenging. With tech development, I'm an extremely strong believer that you need diversity of thought. You need this combination of different kinds of thinking that help to build the tech. And we are going to face issues in the future with AI in particular if we don't start addressing this now. And so what we're seeing as well in the US market, right, is this guardrails and these kind of regulations being lifted around AI development. And so that's almost, we were already before that, in this catch-up race where regulation was trying to catch up with the rate of development.
You talked about the work from home versus work from office push at the moment. I think you gave a talk on this recently at the MOSH conference. You're talking about hybrid work. Actually, maybe I might have misunderstood what hybrid work means. What does hybrid work mean to you before I go any further?
So I think this is I'm very passionate about this as well, because my company is 100% virtual. My team is not located in the same place as me. We are in other parts of the world, and we have been like this since COVID. And our clients are also not in the same location, so we are spread around.
Funny thing that not all of your clients are in your office. That's the strangest thing.
Not in my country.
They never will be.
Yeah, they are everywhere in the world, and we are not. And traditionally consulting, you'd expect to be physically next to the client in their offices, right? And so I'm very passionate about this, because I think moving forward, hybrid work is not just going to be working from a remote location or working virtually. It's going to be hyper-personalized working models where every individual has the ability to design their work-life balance the way they need it to be and still deliver in a productive way. And this might seem very controversial, but I think it's a very possible environment to build in most industries. We need to make sure that, as an individual, you're growing holistically. Both your professional and your personal life has the ability to grow and develop. And, one of the things that we've discovered is, virtual work, remote work is great. But in the near future, I believe that leadership teams will have to start managing not just remote workers and virtual workers, but also digital workers and robotic workers, right? You might have to lead teams that have a combination of human beings, AI, and robotic systems and whatever not as part of that team. And this is really diversity. And so I think this is where leadership teams need to start getting comfortable with this idea of real, true hybrid work environments. You are going to have to start leading different, physical, non-physical team members, human, non-human team members, whatever it may be. And so my organization, for example, we have a digital human employee, and she's on our website, and we've deployed her on our website to help our website visitors, guide them through the website. And the front end is like a digital avatar, but at the back end we have ChatGPT. And the unique thing about her is if you switch on your camera and your voice, she can read your voice, your intonation, your facial expression, and respond accordingly. So it's kind of chatbot 3.0 or something to that extent. And it's deploying her. I'm leading that element of it, but also leading the human element and leading the virtual team. And every one of these individuals and touch points have a different way of being led and being motivated and being engaged with. And so I feel this is what leadership teams need to build. They need to build a little bit more resilience around the future of hybrid work. They need to build a shift in mindset around what teams mean and how organizations can be run. And this could be, exciting for the future if it's taken in a positive way.
I can imagine you being in a boardroom and really shaking up some people's state of their comfort zones, which is exactly what you need to do. Hey, I've got a question for you. One of the things you do, you obviously you speak about AI, you write about AI in business and technology and digital transformation. I have to ask the question. I'd be wasting this opportunity if I didn't. Blockchain. 5 years ago, I'm sure all you could talk about, or maybe probably more like 7 years ago, all you could talk about, I'm sure, was blockchain in the boardroom. I'm sure they wanted to know all about it. It's like we don't hear about it anymore, or at least it doesn't seem to be consuming as much of the popular media. What's the state of blockchain in the boardroom at the moment, in your opinion?
The state is, in my experience, non-existent anymore, unless you have organizations that have already started development in certain aspects like supply chain and so on. It's not even part of the discussion. This is one of my pet peeves around the technology hype, right? A couple of years ago, it was blockchain, and then it was the metaverse, and now we're all about AI. And so I always tell leadership teams, step away from this hype and focus on business value. What's your business problem or challenge? Let's focus on how to resolve that rather than looking at the latest technology that's on the market. I'm still a big...
It reminds me of a comment made by ICICI Bank's old CIO in India when I was there many, many years ago. He described himself as having last mover advantage in India. And he said, we got to skip all the bad decisions you guys made and we just went straight to the good stuff. But it's a bit like that with I mean, Apple's famous for it, right? It doesn't enter the market first. It watches for a while and then it comes in with a much more considered, superior product, arguably, often a decade behind the first movers. Sorry, I interrupted you.
And it's an art and a science, right? Because you don't want to miss the opportunities that these new tech create, especially with AI, how rapidly it's developing. But I did see a lot of companies jump on the AI bandwagon very early on. And now they're having to start thinking about, okay, what's my regulation around that, or what's my compliance need around that? What's my how my organization could actually use it? What's the value that's coming out of it? So I think there are many. It's kind of a balancing act, making sure you are focused on the right thing for your business, but also leveraging the new technology's capabilities. But I was going to say about blockchain, I'm still a big believer in blockchain capability. I think the advantage of the tech hype cycle is it's taken a lot of the attention and kind of the focus away from blockchain, and it's allowed the real industry players to keep developing and keep growing. And the thing that I'm looking forward to in the future is this convergence. AI, blockchain, and immersive environments.
Oh, I would raise the stakes on that, and I've said this, and this must have been at a talk I gave probably 10 years ago, might be longer, where it was back in the very, very early days of AI, of artificial generative intelligences. And there was a company called Narrative Sciences, and their technology would write newspaper articles for you 10 years ago, mind you, right? So this stuff's been in there for a while, and there was another piece of software that was developed that wrote classical music, and obviously the ability to manipulate digital photographs and video was nascent, but we were seeing it developing. And the comment I made was this: is that we are AI and generative AI will erode our trust in what we see and what we hear. And the only way we'll regain that is by having a non-repudiable, guaranteed chain of custody from the moment of creation to the moment of consumption. And that's what blockchain does so brilliantly. So I think I think there's actually, it's going to come back because it's an absolutely pivotal technology for rebuilding trust in a society that where trust is likely to be completely eroded.
The trust, rebuilding trust, and also creating that level of transparency that we need, for example, with AI models and the data activity or the data usage. And I'm surprised at how few players are focused on that, right? Because that for me is going to be the big thing, particularly the larger players, like Microsoft and so on and Google that are focused on investing in AI. I mean, I don't see what's happening internally. Maybe they have a team focused on that, but build your AI systems with a blockchain base or blockchain foundation, and add on to that then immersive technologies, virtual environments, and then you have this beautiful digital world. So I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely, no, perfect. Well, let's talk about that. I mean, as we wrap up, what do you see as the biggest opportunity and the most pressing challenge in the AI space over the next couple of years?
Opportunity is across the board. I feel any organization that's not looking at how to leverage it for their business challenge, their business growth, it's there's so much opportunity. It doesn't matter what size of organization you are. Challenge is by far, I think, the kind of bias and ethical use of AI and technology in general. That is something that I'm fairly concerned about. And, as a thought leader in this space, I'm going to keep pushing for people to keep an eye on that. We need to ensure that we have human oversight and the human value is still sustained within those areas.
As always, perfectly said. Kamales, thank you so much for joining us. If you like what you've heard, do drop your ideas into the chat or hit up Cloudera on LinkedIn using the handle at Cloudera with your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. Hey, if you've got any great thoughts around guests, also would love to hear from you because we do have a great array of guests coming up. And if you do like what you heard, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss another drop. Thank you again, Kamales, for joining us. And thank you again to Cloudera for bringing us another episode of the AI Forecast. With that, we'll see you all, or you'll see me at least, next week.